Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Do you want to put the presentation up?
Yes. Give me a second, I gotta do a screen share.
Okay. Good.
Maybe, hey, Kevin, can you give us a thumbs up if you can see the slide?
Yep, no problem.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we can't see them though.
No,
Do we need to?
I can.
Okay, all right, if you can,
Yeah.
that's fine. All right, can you go to the next slide? All right, so we just want to start with kind of an introduction. This is the Affordable Housing Trust in town. The trust was formed after a vote in October of 2021. The town voted to establish a trust under the state law. And then after that, the select board appointed a committee to develop a bylaw to make that tailored to what was needed in West Newbury in terms of the composition of the trust, the powers that it would have, and how it would operate. And then in May of 2022, that bylaw was brought to town meeting and passed, and the select board appointed this group of people to be the trust. There's only one or two members of the trust that are prescribed under the bylaw. One is a member of the select board, and that is my function. The other is the town manager, who is an ex officio member who does not have voting power, but is still a member of the trust. So I'd like to just have each of us introduce ourselves. I'll start off. My name is Wendy Reed. I'm the select board member. I've lived in town for 28 years, been on various boards and committees. And when I was running for select board, the overarching thing that I heard was that we needed to do something that allowed seniors to stay in town and not have to move out of town when they wanted to downsize. So that's been kind of my focus while on the select board. Donna Garcia is a member of the trust who is not able to be here tonight. She is new to town and retired recently from a career in affordable housing. So she's a really great addition to this trust to help us, especially manage the financial piece of it. So we'll start here, Pam, with you.
My name is Pam Schaefer. I've lived in this town for 41 years. I raised my 3 kids here, and I'm also now helping to raise my 3 grandchildren here. So I'm going around for the second time here. But it's given me major exposure to all the schools, the library, and the other establishments here in town. And I've noticed that our town will benefit by creating some affordable housing for those that work in these establishments and in the surrounding areas.
And my name is Karen Holmes. Up until recently, I did physical therapy practice in Salisbury, but I've always had an interest in homelessness and affordable housing. I serve on the board of the Mayor's House in Haverhill, which helps to serve those that are homeless. So when this opportunity came up to join the board, I was happy to do so.
My name's Derek Mitchell. I'm newer to town, been here not even 4 years. But I keenly interested in this issue and have exposure and opportunity to work in it in a small nonprofit that I run, as well as real estate work that my wife and I do on the side.
I'm Deb Hamilton. I've lived in town since 1975. Built a house here because I needed a place where I could raise Siberian Huskies. But I am presently a member of the planning board. I served on the Conservation Commission for 20 years, and I've been on the Mill Pond Committee for a decade longer than that. I retired from real estate 3 years ago, selling real estate. I've done a lot here in town, but I feel in my retirement, my purpose is to increase housing that more people can afford here in town.
Maybe we can go to Kevin next, Kevin Bowe is a member who's online. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Bowe. Been a resident of West Newbury for about 23 years. I think I've got a diverse background in corporate sales, a small business owner, as well as then transitioning into working with the federal government. And I currently work in state government, which has given me a good perspective on a lot of the different complications, challenges, as well as potential. I'm got involved in this committee because, you know, it's pretty self-evident to me that, you know, the ladder people climb to, you know, get into the housing market from the low entry level to mid-level to higher level, there's a whole lot of rings missing right now. People can't make that leap. And we need to fill in for moderate income, for low income, so that we can have a workforce basically that can live in Massachusetts to support, you know, a pretty robust high-end economy. But we need to make sure we have the housing that provides affordability for everybody.
Angus, you know?
I'm Angus Jennings, I'm the town manager, and prior to getting into town management about 8 years ago, I got my start as a town planner, spent about 15 years in land use issues, both for towns and consulting to cities and towns. So I had quite a lot of work with affordable housing in general, as well as how public policy and public infrastructure investments can either support or frustrate the development of housing.
Hi, I'm Sue Brown. I'm the town planner. I've been here since October, so fairly new to this position. Before that, I spent 8 years in the town of Manchester by the Sea, and a couple of decades before that, doing planning consultant around the state. Much of the work that I've done has interfaced with housing and affordable housing, and I'm really excited to support the Affordable Housing Trust here.
And I'm Liz Russ, I'm the housing consultant, and I've been doing this kind of work for almost 20 years, focusing on helping municipalities with all manners of affordable housing. And I've been working with Housing Trust since the adoption of the Mass General Law back in 2006.
Great. So the focus of tonight, it is a listening session. We have drafted an action plan and we really want feedback. It's still draft, and so we're looking for the public to give us feedback on what our plans are and our priorities. Some logistics, we're going to go through, we have several slides that just summarize the action plan in case you haven't read it or studied it. And we'll just stop at the end of each slide and invite comments or questions. We'll take, if there's any comments or questions in the room, we'll do those first, and then Angus and Kevin will kind of look if anybody's raising their hand online. So in terms of the outline, this is what we're going to cover tonight, just what our mission statement is, what we see as West Newbury's affordable housing needs, how we develop the action plan and why, what the goals and strategies are, our financial plan for the next 3 years. And then we just want to mention a couple of warrant articles that are going to be on our spring town meeting to vote on related to affordable housing. And then Sue is going to just give us an update on some other housing initiatives that are going on that kind of dovetail with our work. So the purpose of the Affordable Housing Trust, this is our mission statement. It's to provide for the preservation and creation of affordable and community housing in the town of West Newbury for the benefit of low and moderate income households. And so this language was very intentional. We want to encompass all definitions of affordable housing, depending on what agency you're working with or what group in town. I mean, there's different ways that people look at it. So we want to cast as wide a net as possible. The other thing that's embedded in this is it's not just creation. We want to preserve affordable housing and help people stay in homes that they're already in. I think what you'll notice is not in this is that we want to meet our 10% under the Chapter 40B program. You know, that is a byproduct. Every affordable unit we create helps our percentage, but right now we're at, you know, a little over 2.5% of our units are affordable. We would have to create 113 to get to the 10% goal that would protect us from streamlined permitting for developers. So not that we don't want to achieve that, but we want to focus more on creating affordable housing in West Newbury. If anybody has comments on that or thoughts, you know, we'd like to hear whether you think that's a good focus or there is some talk that our perception that maybe we should just try to get to the 10% and, you know, so. So what are West Newbury's affordable housing needs? So to qualify for affordable housing, it's based on your income limits. I mean, the income limits are based on area median income and your household size. So this AMI, the area median income, that's established for different groups within the Commonwealth. We are part of the Lawrence group, includes Lawrence, Haverhill, and Methuen. And before you say, oh, that doesn't make sense, they're cities. It also includes Boxford, Andover, Georgetown, Groveland, Merrimack. We don't have any control over what group we're based on. That's just where we're placed. So low to moderate income households, by definition, earn 50 to 100% of that area median income. And that's the group that we're targeting with our work. Currently in West Newbury, that 28% of our residents would meet those limits. So, I mean, I think, there's some examples here. A single person earning from 36,000 to almost 80,000, a couple earning 41,000 to 91,000, and a family of 4 earning up to 114,000. So this is a very broad group of people. This includes seniors who want to downsize but stay in town, employees that would like to live closer to where they work, as well as young people that are graduating from high school or college and would like to live in West Newbury. I mean, they would all fall under these income levels, and that's our target grouping. So our action plan, our responsibility is to oversee funds that are designated for affordable housing. Most affordable housing trusts have an action plan to guide their work. Ours is designed for 3 years. Others choose different time periods. When we first started, we looked at what other towns had done and what we liked and what we thought was appropriate for our town. We also interviewed a couple of consultants that help communities prepare these. And we chose Elizabeth Rust to help us, and she's been working with us since November, listening to our ideas, what our thoughts are, and helping us lay out this action plan. And so it has our priorities as well as our plans for the next 3 years. And we think that this really provides transparency to the West Newbury voters, because you can see exactly what our plans are, what we're going to work on, how much money it's going to cost, or we think it will cost. So that's why this public input is really important to us. And even if you're not able to attend tonight, we will be posting the recording on our website. So we will take comments up until the end of March and incorporate them in our plan. So there's 5 goals in the plan. Each goal has a couple different strategies. I'm just going to summarize these. The number 1 goal, or the goal number 1, not the number 1 goal, is to promote and create affordable units. So the first strategy is to advocate for zoning and planning initiatives. And Sue, our town planner, will talk a little bit later on about what those other initiatives are that the planning board is working on that the Affordable Housing Trust will like to support. This second one is the one that's typically thought of for Affordable Housing Trust, to identify, assess, and develop both municipal and private land for housing. We're in the process now of identifying possible land for housing. That could include town-owned properties. It could include properties that the town may be taking for delinquent taxes. It could include private land that we know that the homeowner or the property owner is interested in developing affordable housing on. Once we identify potential properties, then we have to assess whether they were really feasible or not, whether we could develop them based on utilities like water, the septic, the proximity to transportation, those kinds of things. And then would come the really difficult or the challenging piece of developing it. We would have to hire a developer, develop bid documents, and there's different ways that trusts manage that process. Some of them just turn it over to somebody else to manage. Some are involved, peripherally. So that's probably down the road for us at this point. And then finally, under this goal is to advocate for increased affordable housing and private developments. We have an inclusionary housing bylaw in West Newbury that developers that want to add more than 3 units to a lot or develop 3 lots are required to create affordable housing as part of the development. And so we would like to partner with the planning board or be part of the process, provide comments. There may be opportunities for the developer to come to the Affordable Housing Trust and talk to us and see if there are projects they could contribute, and satisfy their requirements that way. The second goal is to provide housing assistance. And this really recognizes that the cost of buying and renting is not the only challenge people have. I mean, they also have a challenge staying in their housing once they have housing. So one of the things that we want to develop is a small grant program for income qualified residents. And these would be for health and safety related repairs. For example, if the furnace failed during the winter or they needed handicapped access to the house, things like that. Sudbury and Concord are a couple towns that have this kind of program. There's a link in our action plan if you want to look at those further. It's a very prescribed process. There would be a formal estimate from a contractor. There would be a grant agreement between the trust and the homeowner, and the money would be paid directly to the contractor. So these are relatively small, 1,000 to maybe up to 5,000. So that's something that we're going to look at to provide immediate assistance to people that are struggling. The second strategy is to provide information and referrals. And this is, on the town website. Since we're trying to focus on seniors, we want to work with the Council on Aging and establish ourselves as a resource for them in terms of housing, and then just general outreach to all parties that are interested. The final strategy here is to investigate tax relief options, and investigate is really all we're going to focus on. This could be controversial. I mean, what this means is that seniors would have a means testing exemption from taxes, and that sounds good. But what that means is their tax burden would be shared among the rest of the residential base. So people may not want to go forward with that. There have been towns and communities in Massachusetts that have done that. It does require legislative approval. So it's a kind of a long process, but we want to at least investigate it and see if it's something that could work in West Newbury. There are residency and age and income limits attached to that. So it will be quite an involved process. We want to take a look at that. Goal number 3 is public outreach. One of our focuses is to create diversity, equity, and inclusion in the community, in housing as well as our residents. The first strategy to do that would be to publish and maintain current housing information, in terms of eligibility, what programs are offered, what deadlines might be. We're planning on periodic articles, quarterly publications over the email blast, posting on social media, that kind of thing. The second strategy is to sponsor trainings and information sessions. We're thinking of fair housing training. If there's a community event, maybe having a table set up and providing written material, and then annual publications. And finally, to solicit professional assistance. This could be quite expensive, but a lot of trusts do it. There are grants available to support it. This would be hiring a consultant to do public relations work, like to produce a video or some, much more professional written materials than we as a volunteer board could create. There's some examples in the action plan if you want to see what that might entail. So our goal number 4 is to really strengthen partnerships with other entities that are focused on housing needs. Habitat for Humanity, that would be kind of a small scale endeavor, and we've actually had a meeting with them already to talk about opportunities in West Newbury. This Harbor Light Community Partners, that's a much larger scale. We've attended some programming that they've offered, and they really focus on very large developments, but maybe we could be part of a regional development. So we want to explore that. The North Shore Home Consortium is another possibility. Sue, are you still on the board, or you were on the board before?
No, I've served as in evaluating
I see.
proposals that have come forth. Each year they solicit people, municipal board members or community board members to evaluate proposals that they receive that they give their grant funding to. So I've served on that for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. The fourth strategy or potential partnership is with land conservation organizations. This is fairly new. This would be like with Greenbelt. there's a land conservation conference next weekend in Worcester, and one of the topics is gonna be on trying to partner between creating open space and affordable housing. And I think this is a really exciting direction to go in. So we wanna see if we can, you know, do some research into that and see if there's opportunities there. We also wanna look with partnering with nonprofits such as the YMCA, different religious institutions. And then we want to collaborate regionally with the example with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. We're already working on updating our housing production plan with them. We've met with the West Newbury Housing Authority. We have kind of different missions, but they're both related to housing. We want to see how we can kind of support each other. And then finally, other affordable housing trusts in the area. You know, we can learn from each other, maybe share resources and that kind of thing. And goal number 5 is to grow the trust. You know, the first strategy is to obtain support. I mean, we're an all volunteer board, and some of this work is very intensive, both administratively and technically. So we don't want to burden town staff that already have a full-time job, but if there are town staff that are part-time and we could hire them to provide either administrative or technical support, we'd like to do that. Collaborating with other trusts, you know, some communities share like an affordable housing consultant between them or an employee. And then professional housing consultant, which is we're working with Liz to provide us technical support now. We also have another consulting firm that manages the affordable houses we have as part of the exclusionary housing program. And then the big one is to continue funding the trust. These exclusionary housing payments were the initial lump sum that established the trust, and the next slide shows our financial plan. We also we're going to seek to obtain funding from the community housing fund within the CPA and other sources. I mean, there are grants available that we want to pursue, private donations possibly, as well as other, you know, local and state opportunities. So this next page just shows our financial plan. I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but there are a couple of things we want to point out. The opening balance there of 193, almost 194,000. That's just been created from the inclusionary housing payments over time since that bylaw was passed. There are the housing reserves from the CPA, that $172,000. That's 10% of the CPA designation every year has to go to community housing. And because we haven't had a trust, that money hasn't been spent. So there's that balance that's there. And we're going to look to transfer that to the trust. In addition to that, going forward, every year, 10% of the funds designated to the CPA fund will go for community housing. And that's a formal process. We have to apply to the CPC, and then the town has to vote to approve that. And then you see the CPA project-specific funds, that's blank. If there's a specific project that comes up or an opportunity, we could apply for undesignated funds within the CPA, and there's almost $2 million available right now on that. So, so that's a potential going forward. You see the small grants program down on the expenses at $25,000 a year. Those are for the health and safety related grants for mostly for seniors. And then the unit creation and the years FY 25 and 26. I mean, that's to actually create units. Our goal is to create at least 1 unit in this 3-year action plan. And then the ending balance down around 56,000. There's a lot of money coming in. There's a lot of money going out. We just want to make the point that we plan to you know, be active and to spend these funds in a way that promotes affordable housing. We're not just going to stockpile the money and have it sit there. This also doesn't reflect investment income. You know, obviously the market will change, but this is just kind of our blueprint. That's what we're starting with. So I mentioned the annual town meeting articles, the balance transfer of 172,000 is one. And then going forward, 10% of the CPA we look to transfer every year. At town meeting, we are going to give just a brief update on the flooring. They have the town committee reports at the beginning, and we hope that you would support us on both of these articles. The balance transfer has been reviewed by the select board, the CPC, and the FinCom, and they've all voted to approve that unanimously. So other housing initiatives, this is that goal number 1 strategy to advocate for housing initiatives. And Sue, if you could give us a brief update on each of these, that'd be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So these are 3 housing initiatives or planning efforts that are going on currently in town. 2 of them are at the suggestion of the state, the first 2. And the second one is an action that's being taken by the planning board. So I'll just give you kind of a brief thumbnail sketch of these, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on any of them. So the state asks all municipalities to create a housing production plan and update it every 5 years, much like we do with our open space and recreation plan. They ask us to do that so we can look at the state of our housing and identify needs. It looks heavily at demographics and trends, social, economic, and housing data and trends, so that you can really understand what your housing, the state of your housing is, and you can see where you might be falling short in providing for adequate housing. The MVPC, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, is the lead agency that's drafting the housing production plan for us. They're working closely with a steering committee made up of board members, staff, some community representatives. I'm sure the Affordable Housing Trust will be hosting some of those meetings. It's about a year-long process. And in the spring, we expect a final report that will have some recommendations of how to produce and preserve affordable housing. The MBTA Communities Planning Initiative is being undertaken so that we can comply with a new state law known as Section 3A of Chapter 40. The state is asking 175 different municipalities throughout the state that are served by the MBTA to create overlay or create a district in their town where multifamily housing is allowed by right. In West Newbury, that means that they're asking us to create a minimum of 87, not create, but allow for the creation of a minimum of 87 units of housing. Other areas in the state, other municipalities in the state are up to 750 or more units. So we're on the lower end of this ask from the state. This study is being led by a planning and design firm, Dodson Thinker, that the planning board just selected. And they're going to be focusing on a real robust community engagement process so that the community can help us decide where in town this housing might be preferred, what the housing style might be, and what really the design of the district might look like, what the design of a new neighborhood might look like. This also is about a year-long study. The planning board will host most of those meetings, but there will also be other public meetings aside from those. And the final report will be a really an illustrative report that really shows what the design would look like and what the preferred options are for the town, and also would include language, zoning regulations that would control what that development looks like. The planning board hopes to bring that zoning to annual town meeting in 2024. The final initiative, the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. The planning board would really like to encourage smaller and more affordable housing in town. So they're looking at crafting a zoning bylaw that would allow homeowners to create small apartments on their land or in their house. It would be allowed by right, provided it meets certain criteria, such as the maximum size, the maximum number of bedrooms, tenancies. So they're looking at all of those issues and looking to craft a bylaw. They are leading this, and they'll be hosting listening sessions. And we'll, of course, host a public hearing on it before they bring it to the for a town meeting vote. And they're hoping to do that this fall, provided they receive support from the community. So I just want to note that you will find web pages on the first two already, the Housing Production Plan, the MBTA Communities, they both have web pages under the planning board's website. It has a lot of information, and I am also available anytime to answer any questions that you might have. I expect we will also be creating a website for the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And then finally, as I mentioned, the slides and recording will be posted on our webpage. If you haven't checked out our webpage, we had some support from the assistant town clerk. She's updated everything. There's a lot of great housing resources there. There's the bylaws there for the Affordable Housing Trust, the Declaration of Trust, our action plan, as well as some documents from the bylaw committee that served last year, you know, an FAQ about affordable housing that are really good. We need to finalize this action plan in April, so we'll take any comments up until the end of March, I would say. And this our email address is active, so feel free to reach out there or to any one of us. And I think that's it, unless people have comments or questions that they want to talk about now. Brian, any thoughts about collaborating with the planning board?
Yeah, I offer just a couple ideas. First of all, thank you. Tremendous amount of work. It's well done, well put together, and obviously shows a lot of thought went into the building the backbone of this process for the town. I'm just delighted that the town has finally gotten to this point where we have a very active affordable housing trust. Yeah, I think there'll be a fair amount of interaction. I am a planning board member, and you know, we started the lead knowing that you folks would be ramping up and whatnot with the things that we can move forward with, and that's looking at different zoning opportunities. And you may come up with some other ideas, certainly on your own. But it's an interesting confluence of, we have several housing studies and initiatives that are coming together. And I think if we have the consultants, and we're fortunate that most of this is grant funded, or the MVPC work is free of charge to the town, basically. That there'll be a great education for people, and that people will support, you know, what you ultimately are looking for here. You know, I've been a member of the board for a number of years, and also co-chaired a group back in 08-09, where we had a proposal for the Mullen property, town land, which is still sitting across the street here, for golf drivers to hit a good ball and land on a piece of it. And you know, that a lot of that was focused on, you know, with this 10% that you know, my God, we were all back in that day afraid of that. Well, you know, we've been somewhat fortunate. We haven't had, you know, a lot of the 40Bs. We have had interest from at least two, and maybe a third one was dabbling around. The most recent one was a development on Coffin Street, which did not come to pass. So I like your approach of trying to do it smaller pieces. Maybe that was a little too much looking back in hindsight for the town to, you know, approve, and that ultimately did not pass at town meeting. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 35 units of multi-generational housing over there, which still rankles me so much. But
Rankles you because it didn't
it
pass?
did not pass.
Right.
Yes.
Do you feel that things have changed since 2008 in the perception of the town? in that regard?
I try to be optimistic, I hope so. But until you get in a town meeting arena, you know, it's hard to know. And we thought we knew, we thought we had plenty of outreach, and you know, that was a painful
Mhm.
lesson for those of us who worked so hard on that. So I think the approach of looking at not just this 10%, because realistically, you know, in my opinion, that's a goal that's gonna be very hard for us to chase. And I think if we look at who we want to serve in town and help seniors and elders and those who are looking for a first-time opportunity, I think for me, that's the better approach. And the state will give you some points towards other 40Bs if you have an active program and moving forward on creations and whatnot. But, you know, I hear from people all the time that, you know, why can't we just have a few more units, in particular for seniors that would like to stay in town, maybe sell a house. And it's complicated. It's just not an easy thing to do. Somebody sells a house for $700,000, well, that might be way above an asset level. So you folks are gonna have to grapple with how you deal with all of that and whatnot. But I think there's a great group of folks up here who, and fresh ideas that can be brought to the table here. So thank you.
Thanks.
Brian, are you still on the MVPC?
Yes. Yeah,
Good.
I'm representing.
So the new housing production plan is one that you're involved in?
Well, peripherally, I mean, they have a staff member assigned to it.
Yeah.
And she is interacting with our town planner, with Sue.
Christine, do you see ways that the trust could collaborate with the Council on Aging to promote housing for seniors or support seniors in their housing? Yeah.
I think the need is there,
Mhm.
for sure.
Okay. We're very open to doing that. So if you have ideas, you know, reach out to us. Anybody online have any input they want to share?
I do not see anyone's hand up.
Okay.
I did want to point out that Christine was gracious enough to serve on the steering committee for the housing production plan. So we'll have lots of opportunity to see how interactions or how we can support each other. So I was really happy to have you join. Thank you.
Hi, Annie.
You're muted, Annie.
So I just wanted to say that I will be going to that Mass Land Trust Coalition meeting on the
Great.
25th, which is focused on land trust intersection with this issue about affordable housing. It's certainly on Greenbelt's radar. I'm very interested in it. I'll be there and taking notes.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks.
I will look for you there.
Any other questions people want to raise?
I have one more.
Sure.
I saw a clip, I think it was in the Globe this morning, or maybe it was last night, that the Attorney General's office has issued an advisory note about the MBTA Communities Act that strongly suggests that compliance with this is, let's say, recommended. There are 4 communities, in my understanding, that chose not to submit an initial plan of acceptance or to move forward towards this. And I think 1 or 2 were noted as saying they're going to think about it again. But it sounds like the state is intending to move forward and with putting some teeth into this. And again, we're fortunate we have a nice grant, and I think we have a terrific consulting firm on board now to really help get that message out. And that can also be leveraged with all of your work here.
So it's not just the loss of grant opportunity. There may actually be penalties for not So that,
Yeah, that's what was implied.
yeah,
And maybe not so suddenly.
yeah, okay.
The letter that Attorney General's, letter is on the MBTA website. So
Oh,
we posted that
okay.
today. We just received it.
All right, so, if people do have, thoughts or, questions that come up, please reach out to us or, send an email to the website, to the, email address on our webpage, that'd be great. And, we appreciate your making the effort to attend. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.